In the tradition of their forebears, the Imperial Knights represented the best of the Empire and served as bodyguards, closest protectors, and confidants of their emperor. But this empire was different now. Over 100 years after the fall of Palpatine, this new empire served as a more secular government, free, at least for a time, of the influence of the Sith that had governed before it. Clad in crimson and midnight black, the epitome of the Empire's fighting forces, the Imperial Knights served a sacred dual duty. Sworn to their liege and empire, they had a higher purpose. They were loyal first and foremost to the Force, and their sacred charge would include challenging or even killing the Emperor if he were to fall to the dark side.
You are listening to the Star Lords Podcast.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
You stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf herder!
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Knights of the Empire.
The Imperial Knights, formerly known as the Knights of the Empire, and sometimes called the Imperial Jedi, were an elite order of Force wielders sworn to the Emperor of the Fel Empire. Unlike the Dark Acolytes and Sith cults that had once served past Imperial regimes, these warriors stood apart, rejecting the corruption of the dark side. Yet they did not walk the path of the Jedi either, adhering instead to a rigid, pragmatic philosophy that placed absolute loyalty to the Emperor above all else. To the new Jedi Order, they are neither ally nor enemy, gray figures who straddled the line between light and dark, bound not to the Force itself, but to the will of their sovereign. The Imperial Knights pledged unwavering loyalty to their Emperor, believing them to be the living embodiment of the Force's will. By 130 ABY, Emperor Roan Fel himself stood as both ruler and master of their order, a fully trained Imperial Knight who led by both right and might. Yet their devotion was not without limits. Should the Emperor succumb to the dark side, the Knights bore a solemn duty to redeem him if possible, but to strike him down if necessary. Regicide was no betrayal in their creed, for their true allegiance was not to the throne, but to the Force. When Darth Krayt seized the throne in 130 ABY, the Imperial Knights refused to kneel. Instead, they followed their emperor into exile, becoming the vanguard of his fractured empire. No longer guardians of a sovereign state, they became warriors in the shadows, loyalists fighting to reclaim what had been stolen. By 137 ABY, Roan Fel wielded his knights as both envoys and executioners, dispatching them on perilous missions to forge uneasy coalitions with the Galactic Federation of Free Alliances and the Jedi Order. But diplomacy was only one front in the war. Across the burning battlefields of Vendaxa, Mon Calamari, and Had Abaddon, Imperial Knights clashed with the forces of Darth Krayt, standing defiantly against the darkness that had usurped their empire.
Structure and doctrine. The Imperial Knights emerged as an order of warriors nearly 3 generations before 137 ABY, pledging their blades and their lives to Jagged Fel, the first emperor of the Fel Empire. Though the Fel bloodline had not originally carried the gift of the Force sensitivity, by the time of Roan Fel's reign, every known heir to the dynasty had trained as an Imperial Knight, bound by both blood and duty to the Empire. By 130 ABY, the Order had grown into a disciplined and highly structured force, earning the moniker of Imperial Jedi, though the comparison was misleading. Unlike the Jedi, the Imperial Knights did not serve the Force itself, nor did they spend their days in meditation and contemplation. Their loyalty was singular, to the Emperor, the living embodiment of the Empire's will. To disobey was treason, to abandon the Order was death. Yet their devotion was not blind. A safeguard enshrined since the Order's founding dictated that should the Emperor ever fall to the dark side, the Knights were duty-bound to either redeem or remove him. It was the only law that overruled their oath, for while they served the Emperor, they did so as agents of the Force's balance. Master Trace Sind put it simply: the Imperial Knights served the Force by upholding an empire that brought order, and if sacrifice was necessary to achieve that goal, even the sacrifice of the innocent, so be it. By 137 ABY, every Imperial Knight fought with a singular purpose: to see Ronfell restored to his rightful throne, guarding both his life and his secrecy. They were trained in many of the same techniques as the Jedi Order, but differed in philosophy and execution. To an Imperial Knight, the Force was not a mystic guide. It was a weapon, to be wielded with precision and restraint. Emotions were to be mastered, fear to be crushed beneath discipline, and the reckless passions that lured others to the dark side had no place in their ranks. To the Jedi, they were neither allies nor adversaries, but something in between. Gray warriors who stood apart from the light, yet did not embrace the dark. The Imperial Knights, in turn, viewed the Jedi as distant cousins, bound to a different path. A being could not be both Jedi and Imperial Knight, for their philosophies were irreconcilable. The Jedi sought harmony, the Imperial Knights sought order, and they would enforce it at any cost. Recruitment and training.
The path to become an Imperial Knight was neither chosen nor offered. It was imposed. Only those who exhibited both unwavering loyalty to the Emperor and a natural affinity for the Force were deemed worthy. Once identified, a candidate was conscripted into Imperial service and sent to Bastion, the heart of the Empire, where they would train under a veteran knight. Their apprenticeship lasted until their master deemed them ready, though others within the Order would often contribute to their instruction. Training was brutal, but never without purpose. Failure was not an option, for the Emperor demanded only success, and success was always delivered. Years of discipline forged students into warriors, their bodies honed into weapons, their minds tempered into shields. Every lesson, every trial, served to prepare them for their ultimate duty, standing between their Emperor and all who would threaten him. Upon completing their training, an Imperial Knight became more than just a guardian. They became an extension of the Emperor's will, sworn to fight and, if necessary, die in his service. Through the Force, they refined themselves into living weapons, unstoppable, bound to the Empire until death.
Ranks and leadership. By 137 ABY, the Imperial Knights had become a tightly disciplined order, their hierarchy as rigid as the armor they wore. Only a select few bore the title of Master, their rank signifying not only exceptional skill, but the personal approval of Emperor Ronfell himself. When the Emperor was forced into exile, at the head of this command structure stood Master Antares Draco, formerly second in command of the Order, and the Emperor's most trusted blade. His authority was absolute among his fellow knights, second only to the will of Fel. While Imperial Knights were permitted to take on a single apprentice at a time, mentorship was not a privilege lightly granted. Only those who had mastered their own abilities to perfection could train another, and even then, the distinction between teacher and warrior was minimal. The order had little patience for philosophical tutelage or endless deliberation. There was only duty, and the only master who truly mattered was the Emperor. Among the ranks, one title stood apart, the Master Armorer. Tasked with crafting specialized life-preserving armor for those knights who had suffered grievous wounds in service to the Empire, this role was both practical and symbolic. A knight might be broken, but they would not fall. In 137 ABY, this sacred duty belonged to Master Hogrum Chalk, the architect of their resilience, ensuring that even the maimed could still stand and fight for the Emperor. Weapons, armor, and abilities.
Each Imperial Knight wielded a standard silver-hilted lightsaber, its white-silver blade a symbol of the Order's unity and their subservience to the Empire above all else. Forged from synthetic crystals, the weapons were crafted without ceremony or significance, a stark contrast to the Jedi's deep traditions. To an Imperial Knight, the lightsaber was nothing more than a tool, a weapon used for a purpose. Their training was just as focused on hand-to-hand combat, vehicular warfare, and mastering the Force as it was on lightsaber combat. While most knights carried the standard hilt, Marasiah Fell's weapon emitted a distinctive blue blade, a personal touch within the otherwise uniform design. Aslyn Ray, however, used the orange-bladed variant while undercover, concealing her true identity as an Imperial Knight. The Knight's uniform matched their martial prowess. Cloaked in crimson armor, a material similar to Darth Vader's own, the suit was reinforced with frick filament to ward off lightsaber strikes. The Imperial insignia adorned the left pauldron and right gauntlet, with the gauntlet crafted from pure cortosis, rendering any lightsaber blade that touched it inert for several moments. A black hood and cape completed the ensemble. For most formal occasions, Rowan Fell wore a more elaborate version of this armor, crowned with a royal cape. Yet, during more perilous missions, like the one on Agamar in 137 ABY, he reverted to practical standard armor, which provided more flexibility in combat situations. The Imperial Knights were masters of both their armor and Force, using their combat gear as an extension of their power and skill. In cases of severe injury, the Imperial Knights were provided with specially designed life-preserving armor crafted by the Master Armorer. By 137 ABY, at least 2 such suits had been created to save knights from crippling wounds. While some knights, like Aslyn Ray, donned the guise of bounty hunters during undercover missions, leaving behind their familiar armor, others, like Trace Sind and Sigil Dare, employed plainclothes while on covert operations, such as their mission to Dak. As fully trained Force users, the Imperial Knights were sometimes dismissed by the Sith as quote-unquote Fell's Forcelings, their abilities underestimated. Yet, there was no denying their power, discipline, and skill. They were as capable in the Force as any Jedi, if not more so. Each Imperial Knight was rigorously trained for combat, developing not only the techniques of lightsaber combat, but also 2 new forms, the aggressive Praetoria Vonal and the defensive Praetoria Ishu. They had no patience for negotiation, and they were steadfast in their belief that their purpose was to fight, not to contemplate. The Imperial Knights wielded the Force in diverse ways, levitating objects, manipulating minds, and of course, mastering lightsaber combat. Some even dabbled in dark side powers, a practice less taboo for them than for the Jedi, as they were unconcerned with Jedi philosophy. Their lightsaber skills, however, varied. Some knights held their own against the greatest of the one Sith, like when Trace Sinde fought Darth Azard on Dak, or when Roan Fel defeated Darth Krull on Bastion. Antares Draco single-handedly fended off a half-dozen Sith warriors during a mission to Korriban, buying time for his allies to escape. Despite their prowess, not all knights were invincible. Darth Talon slew the Knight Elk Vetter, and Darth Krayt effortlessly cut down 4 knights with ease, proving that even the most skilled among them could be undone by the might of the one Sith. Draco was also known for his unmatched skill behind the controls of a starfighter, an example of the versatility and adaptability of the Imperial Knights in every form of combat.
Origins. The Galactic Empire, once a bastion of Sith rule under Emperor Palpatine, began to sever its ties to the dark side in the years following his death. What remained of the Empire sought to distance itself from the founder's legacy, reshaping itself into a force of order rather than just subjugation. The concept of Force wielders loyal to the Empire was first hinted at in 22 ABY during the rediscovery of the outbound flight. Among the expedition's members were Jedi Masters Luke Skywalker and Mara Jade Skywalker, who found themselves entangled in the ambitions of the Empire of the Hand. Admiral Voss Park, recognizing Mara's past as one of Palpatine's former agents, offered her a position within the Hand, while Chak Fel subtly suggested that even the greater vision, attracting Luke Skywalker himself into their cause and establishing an academy within their territory. Though the idea remained unfulfilled at the time, echoes of it would resurface in later years. The Second Imperium's Shadow Academy, under Brachus, made its own attempt to forge Dark Jedi in the 23 ABY, though their efforts ultimately crumbled. Then, in 43 ABY, Jagged Fel, now head of state of the Imperial Remnant, proposed an alternative. In discussions with Jaina Solo of the New Jedi Order, Fel expressed a desire to establish a Jedi presence within the Remnant. His first experiment was appointing disgraced Jedi Tahiri Vela as his hand, but her tenure was short-lived, and she eventually returned to the Jedi. It was only after Fel's marriage to Jaina Solo that the true foundation was laid. In time, he would rise to become the first emperor of the Fel Empire, and with his ascension, the Imperial Knights were born. Founded under the rule of Jagged Fel, the Imperial Knights took shape as an elite force-wielding order bound not to the Jedi Code nor the Sith dogma, but to the Emperor himself. By the time of Jagged's son, the order had fully solidified, with figures like Trace Sind among its earliest adherents. Their role mirrored that of Palpatine's Royal Guard, but unlike their predecessors, they are more than just sentinels. They were warriors of the Force, sworn to defend the Emperor, but never to serve him blindly. By 130 ABY, Roan Fel had become the third ruler of his bloodline to lead the Empire, and with him, the Imperial Knights reached their apex. Yet even among their ranks, betrayal lurked. Eskar Nin, once a Knight of the Order, broke his oath and murdered Fel's wife. In response, Master Antares Draco was dispatched to end him. Though Draco bested his former master, Nin survived and later resurfaced, this time as an agent of the Sith, a dark reminder that even the most disciplined of warriors were not immune to corruption. Sith Imperial War.
The flames of war erupted in 127 ABY as the Galactic Alliance clashed with Roan Fel's empire. Though the war raged for 3 years, Fel himself opposed it, forbidding his Imperial Knights from taking part. Instead, they remained at his side as his personal guard, their blades drawn not for conquest, but for the Emperor's protection. When the Battle of Kamas sealed the Alliance's defeat, Fel's position remained precarious. Director of Imperial Intelligence Nina Calixte arrived on Coruscant with dire news. Fel's Sith allies were preparing to betray him. The Dark Lord Krayt intended to claim the throne for himself, and Fel realized that the upcoming Council of Moffs meeting was a trap. The Sith would expect him to appear alongside a detachment of his knights. To deceive them, Fel's cousin, Morgan, led a squad to protect a decoy emperor. But the Sith were merciless. Darth Krayt slaughtered them all, and in doing so, claimed the throne unopposed, with the Moffs bending the knee to their new Dark Master. The true Roan Fel slipped into the shadows, escaping Coruscant with Atari's Draco at his side. The Emperor of the Fel Empire was now a fugitive, his Imperial Knights forced into exile. In the 7 years that followed, the Knights grew in number. Some Jedi, unwilling to die or serve under Sith rule, turned to Fel, swearing themselves to his cause. Among them was Azlyn Rae, a former Jedi whose training was completed within the ranks of the Imperial Knights. From the depths of his exile, Roan Fel became a specter of defiance against Krayt's rule. His empire in exile waged a relentless war of attrition, striking at the Dark Lord's fleet with precision and fury. Though displaced from his throne, Fel remained unbroken, his Imperial Knights waiting for the moment to reclaim their empire.
Second Imperial Civil War. In 137 ABY, Roan Fel returned to Bastion, which had been under Sith control for 7 years, and regained the loyalty of the Imperial forces there, believing his empire could now pose a serious threat to Darth Krat. Meanwhile, Krat discovered that Fel's daughter, Princess Marasia, was on Socorro and sent Darth Talon to kill her bodyguard, Elk Vedder. Vedder's sacrifice allowed Marasia and Astral Vow to escape, unaware that Talon was following them to locate Fel's base. Antari's Draco disobeyed Fel's orders to not reveal Bastion's reclamation, and with Ganner Krieg, they traveled to rescue Marasia. They joined forces with Jedi Knights Wolf Sazin and Shadow Vow to confront the Sith. During the battle, Marasia was mortally wounded while protecting Kate Skywalker, but Draco managed to keep her alive. In the aftermath, Draco confessed that the massacre of the Jedi had occurred against Fel's will, and Marasia, believing she was dying, suggested the need for an alliance between the Jedi and Imperial Knights to defeat Krat. Cade Skywalker, using his Jedi skills, healed Marasia before the Mynock ship returned to Bastion, setting the stage for a potential alliance between the Jedi and Imperial Knights against Darth Krat's Sith Empire. After Skywalker secretly left Bastion, Roan Fel chastised Draco and Krieg for disobeying a direct order. He believed they had created a stalemate with Darth Krat's empire, and as the Sith likely tracked them back to Bastion. However, Fel knew admitting the disobedience would damage his authority, so he retroactively approved their mission to Vendaxa. Draco and Krieg were now the Empire's heroes, tasked with the most dangerous missions. Their next assignment took them to the Wheel, a neutral space station in the Besh Gorgon system, where they were to escort Captain Mingo Bovark and ensure his safety during talks with Admiral Gar Stasi of the Galactic Alliance Remnant. Fel needed allies, and unsure about the Jedi, hoped to find them among the Galactic Alliance. Upon arriving at the Wheel, Draco expressed distrust in the Galactic Alliance guards while the meeting between Stasi and Bovark took place. Meanwhile, Imperial spies Morgan Cord and Jor Torlin caused a disruption by using a command override limpet droid to fire on Stasi's ship. Believing Fel had betrayed him, Stasi confronted Bovark with a vibro shiv, and a firefight broke out between the Imperial Knights and Galactic Alliance guards. Krieg defended against the guards with his lightsaber, while Draco rushed to retrieve Bovark. When Wheel Administrator Pol Tem arrived with security, he ordered the Imperial Knights to surrender their weapons, but Draco refused. Tem then declared the station off-limits to all of Ronfel's forces. After surviving a Sith assassination attempt, Emperor Fel sent Imperial Knights Trace Sind and Sigil Dare to sabotage the advanced Star Destroyer Imperius at the Mon Calamari orbital shipyards. However, Admiral Gar Stasi of the Galactic Alliance stole the ship, leading Darth Krayt to retaliate by attacking Dak and executing 10% of the Mon Calamari population. Sind and Dare, still undercover, fought through Sith forces to warn Stasi, with Gahan's help. They successfully rescued captured Rogue Squadron pilots, but were confronted by Sith Lord Darth Azard. After a delayed escape, Stasi agreed to consider an alliance with Fel. Meanwhile, Ronfel dispatched Azlyn Ray to track Cade Skywalker, who was on Yago with his uncle. Ray, disguised as a bounty hunter, eventually relayed coordinates of the Jedi's hidden temple to Fel's forces. However, upon their arrival, Skywalker and the Imperial Knights Draco and Krieg clashed, leading to a tense encounter. Marassia Fel then proposed a potential alliance between the Empire and the Jedi, though Skywalker suggested assassinating Darth Krayt. The Jedi Council rejected the plan, but Imperial Knights supported it, joining Skywalker on the mission. Skywalker's team traveled to Had Abaddon, where they encountered Rakghouls controlled by Celeste Morn. After defeating Darth Krat's forces, including the Mir Talisman, Skywalker killed Morn, but Rey was mortally wounded. The team returned to Bastion, and a philosophical rift formed between Draco, Krieg, and the Empire's goals. In a subsequent operation, Ronfel met with Jedi Master Kuruk on Agamar, seeking an alliance. However, Sith Regent Morlish Veed launched Operation Thunderstroke, leading to a battle where Princess Marassia was captured. Fel initiated a rescue plan, sending Draco and his team to Korriban, where they learned the shocking truth that Darth Havoc, formerly an Imperial Knight, had survived. After Draco's capture and intense torture, he revealed the location of the Jedi Hidden Temple. Fel then organized a trap for the Sith at the Hidden Temple, where, despite heavy resistance, the Allies suffered significant losses due to Darth Krat's secret army of Sith troopers. The Sith Imperial forces were ultimately pushed back, but casualties were high, including Jedi Masters. Draco, captured during the battle, provided intelligence on the Sith to Ronfel. In a separate event, Darth Meladi, after being captured by Imperial intelligence, offered a biotoxin to destroy a planet in exchange for Cade Skywalker's death. Fel hesitated, but after the defeat at the Hidden Temple, he reconsidered her offer, planning to use the weapon to eliminate the Sith. New Order.
After studying the lone surviving Sith trooper, Emperor Fel convinced the Allies to launch a final attack on Coruscant, the heart of Darth Krayt's power, before Bastion fell to Sith troopers. All rebel forces gathered for the assault, but in secret, Fel, influenced by Hogram Chalk, decided to use the deadly bioweapon, Omega Red, on Coruscant to ensure the Sith's destruction. He assigned his most trusted Imperial Knights, Ganner Krieg, Azlyn Ray, Sigil Dare, and Cade Skywalker, to sabotage Coruscant's orbital defenses and assassinate Krayt. Meanwhile, Antares Draco, Trace Sinde, and Marassia stayed by his side aboard his flagship, the Jagged Fel. The first phase of the plan succeeded, with the Allied fleet safely reaching Coruscant. However, Krayt unleashed his Sith troopers, and the battle began to turn against the Allies. Desperate, Fel decided to deploy Omega Red, unaware that it was ineffective against the Sith, as they were immune. This decision would condemn him and the Allies, turning them into pariahs while allowing the Sith to retain control. Draco tried to reason with Fel, but the Emperor, Now consumed by the dark side, Force pushed him and his fellow knights away. Realizing the Emperor's fall, Draco confronted Fel in a duel. Meanwhile, Skywalker's team infiltrated the Sith Temple, killing Darth Strife and Wolf Sazin, and eventually Skywalker confronted and killed Krayt in a final battle. Sensing Krayt's death, Draco urged Fel to abandon Omega Red, but Fel refused and struck Draco. In the ensuing confrontation, Draco killed Fel, stabbing him in the back. With Krayt's death, the Sith troopers, severed from their leader, descended into madness, and the Sith fleet retreated. Coruscant fell under Allied control. A funeral for the Emperor was held, with Hogram Chalk delivering the eulogy and announcing Marasiah as Empress of the newly formed Galactic Federation Triumvirate. The Emperor's descent into the dark side was kept secret for political reasons, ensuring that his betrayal was hidden from the galaxy.
Welcome aboard the Millennial Falcon. This is Christian.
And this is Jordan.
We're currently exploring the not-so-beautiful industrial world of Bastion, the former heart of the Fel Empire in exile. I wouldn't say it's necessarily beautiful. I wouldn't call factories beautiful, but it is very purpose-built, which is kind of
it's
in line.
beautiful in the sense that it provides plenty of economic activity for the well-being of the galaxy
and jobs for people.
It's beautiful in that sense,
but
maybe not to look at. But.
It does play into what we're talking about with the Imperial Knights being a practical force. You know, they might not be as pretty as a Jedi in philosophy or deep thought.
Yeah.
But they serve more of a utilitarian purpose.
Absolutely. But before we get into all that, we got to do some housekeeping. So as you guys all know, we have Patreon supporters, members. They support our show. They help keep this bucket of bowls flying. And for $3 a month, you can become a patron member, and you get access to our library of bonus episodes. We also do live streams, and we put the audio version on Patreon. You can get the live stream for free, but only on YouTube. If you want the audio version, you get access to that on Patreon. For $5 a month, you can become a Knight member, and in that tier, you also get ad-free listening to all of our new episodes. So that's an extra benefit. I know some people hate listening to ads, so that's all the more reason to get the $5 version of the Patreon. You can also do single episode buys on Patreon as well of all the bonus episodes. We accept single donations either in the form of USDs on PayPal. You can just send that to starlordspodcast@gmail.com. Make sure you put a message in there letting us know that you sent it. And we also accept Bitcoin. Our Bitcoin address is in the show description. Also, don't forget, we sell merch on Redbubble. Get some of our cool prints. You can put them on shirts, hats, mugs, that sort of thing. Rate and review the show. That helps get us to more ears to listen to the show. Spotify and Apple are the big ones. So if you use Spotify or Apple, make sure to rate and review. But if you have any other podcatcher podcasting app that has a review option, by all means. Follow us on social media. We are on Discord, Instagram, x.com, Facebook. All the links for those are in the description. If you also just Google us, Google the Star Wars Podcast, one of our social medias will pop up. But yeah, follow us. Let us know what you think about the episode that you're listening to. If you have a collection, cosplay, fan fiction, send it to us. Send us a DM or email us.
Or just tell us how you like to hear our voices.
Yeah, that too.
A nice little love letter to Jordan.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you can send that. And we also, again, just repeating our email, starlordspodcast@gmail.com. So reach out to us. We love hearing from the fans. Anyways, let's get back into it. The Imperial Knights.
Yeah. So if you listeners out there have been with us for a while, think back to some of our first episodes discussing like the philosophy of the Force. This concept of gray Jedi, we've discussed in the past, kind of comes up again through these Imperial Knights. They are a faction of Force wielders who don't ascribe to the light or the dark. They have a very, like I said earlier, like practical purpose, A, being bodyguards, but utilizing the Force as a tool, again, very utilitarian in that. I wouldn't say go far as to say that they're apolitical, because they very clearly have a political side, the Fel Empire. But they're certainly a cool, unique concept, and they get to use their colorless or white lightsabers, which is always a concept that people had played with the idea of gray Jedi.
Yeah, we get a lot of comments and messages of wanting us to discuss gray Jedi.
Yeah.
I assure you, we have addressed this topic
in the past,
many times in the past, but we are here addressing it again.
Oh, yeah, and we may yet still do a full dedicated episode to gray Jedi. But there are a lot of issues with the gray Jedi narrative that do come up, especially, again, if you go back and listen to those first Jedi, Sith, and Philosophy of the Force episodes that we did. Yeah. And the topic, like Jordan said, does come up sporadically. So just go back and listen to all the episodes and piece together the entire conversation scattered about.
Yeah, it's so in this episode, we are in the farthest point of the expanded universe in terms of eras. But if you go all the way to the farthest point in the past, you have the Jedi or Jedi, however you want to say it. Yeah. They're kind of this gray Jedi. Conceptually, they're a gray Jedi because they embrace both the light and the dark side.
They're seeking true balance. And then, again, you get into the whole discussion of what is balance? Yeah. Is it all light side?
But there's debate about that, if that's truly a gray Jedi. Yeah.
It gets complicated real quick and could dominate the whole episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Point is that we have had this conversation, and I just want to acknowledge the Imperial Knights kind of exist on that scale, in the sense of they use light side. They also use the dark side, but they're not necessarily prescribers to either side. However, they are certainly light side orientated in that they know the risks of the Sith. And actually, the Imperial Knights do fall in a nice category where they justify the light side being balanced, as George Lucas's vision, in that they will strike down a dark side emperor.
Right. Yeah.
So they still have even though they'll use the dark side of the Force, they do think that the Sith or the dark side is still dangerous and will still stop it from taking control.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there is something too about this sort of guiding philosophy of the Imperial Knights, in that if you think about the Jedi themselves and the Jedi Order, even though it's obviously aligned with the Republic for so much of history, it isn't necessarily a Republic partisan, and the Jedi Order doesn't exist for the Republic. It exists for itself. You know, it's sort of an end.
It was a separate entity that was absorbed into the Republic.
Yeah,
and I'm even hesitant to describe it exactly as absorbed into.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it. It's
an independent organization that safeguards the Republic.
Maybe interdependent is a way we could describe it. They're not independent. They're not sovereign in the sense that maybe we think, but I don't know. It's hard to describe.
Politics is hard sometimes.
Well, obviously, the Jedi will separate from the Republic when it turns into the Galactic Empire and tries to genocide them.
As happens from time to time.
That's a good reason to actually leave the polity that you're a part of. Yeah. However, but my wider point though is that the Jedi Order typically are kind of an end unto themselves, whereas the Imperial Knights exist for the Empire.
Yeah.
That is why they exist. and they have like acknowledged the pitfalls of the dark side and resist against it, but they don't exist for some like greater
Purpose.
force good
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah, like if the Empire were to fall, the Knights would dissolve.
Yeah,
Like, as an order,
exactly.
their purpose would no longer exist if there's no Emperor.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's in some ways you wonder if that can almost keep you like grounded from like being too consumed by the force, right? Like it almost seems, and this is just more my conjecture here, like they view the force as more of a tool or a weapon to be wielded and not
As an end to itself.
Yeah. Like a lot of Jedi and Sith do, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's absolutely true. And there is an element of like it is not a ridiculous stance to take. Like again, seeing the destructive power of the Jedi and the Sith, and we even joke on the show a number of times about like eradicating the Jedi and the Sith. They're all Force users.
Yeah.
This might be a good way to kind of harness that instead. That all being said, too, we all have also in the past discussed other Force-based religions and philosophies outside of the Jedi and Sith. There are tons of ways that the Force is observed and practiced and used through countless different religions and such. So the Imperial Knights could very easily just slot into another way.
Yeah.
Or another approach to the Force, right? So, yeah, overall they're pretty cool. Their armor is really cool too.
Yeah, I love their armor.
Yeah, it's very much influenced by Darth Vader's armor.
Mm-hmm.
The black and red, obviously, they're the descendants of the Crimson Guard that we talked on recently.
Yeah,
in recent
like
episodes.
Sort of the evolution. From a century prior.
And you know who else has cool armor? The Mandalorians. That's why I want to talk to you about Mando.
Mando?
Yeah.
Like the Mandalorians?
No, not that Mando. I mean the men's hygiene products from Mando.
Oh, that Mando. I love Mando. Let me tell you all about it. So this is a new company that we're doing a little partnership with, and they sent me their starter pack of hygiene products. It's like for men, and, you know, women don't listen to this show, so it's like perfect for us. And this is just pure happenstance. They're literally called Mando, which it has nothing to do with Star Wars, but I knew it by the name. Like, okay,
we just had to do it.
Yeah, we have to do this. Yeah, I've gotten a few emails over the years for like partnerships with products that I don't really care for or like, but you know, I thought these guys, they're the ones, right? So they sent me the starter pack and I tried it out. So it comes with like bar soap, body wash, like a liquid deodorant, and some wipes and stuff like that. And I'm a big fan of bar soap. I like bar soap. I'm kind of girly. I'll buy like I would buy like a ton of different bar soaps, but I really like their soap just because it's like it's a really subtle, but it has a nice scent and it's very fresh, which I like. I don't like it to be super strong,
Overpowering.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's just like it's very simple. It's a very good product. I would recommend it to anyone. Their starter pack online is like it's actually a pretty decent deal. And of course, you know, you can get the starter pack with the promo code STAR, STAR, and then you can, you'll get a little bit of a discount there. And
Yeah, so if you're interested, make sure you check out the Mando starter pack, which is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash and deodorant wipes that Jordan was talking about, and free shipping. Who doesn't love free shipping? As a special offer for our listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code that equates to over 40% off of your starter pack. Use code STAR, STAR, at shopmando.com, shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. Once again, use code STAR at shopmando.com and let them know that the Star Wars guys sent you. Another point I wanted to bring up towards the end there with Draco, Antares Draco. Very cool name, by the way. It's one of those names that's almost too cool that it almost becomes uncool with how, like, if like your character's name was just like Mr. Cool or something. Like,
now, do you know, sorry to interrupt, but do you know when this was written?
whenever Legacy comics were written, which I want to say was the 20-teens, maybe.
Oh, okay.
I'm going off of memory. I could be way off, but
the only other thing I'm thinking of is like the famous Harry Potter character Draco Malfoy.
Oh,
who is like,
well, Draco,
it is a common name.
Yeah, Draco is like, you know, from the constellation. It means dragon in Latin.
Yeah,
like, it's a
dragon.
cool name.
Yeah,
like,
it's obviously. Yeah.
Certainly Harry Potter came before Legacy.
Yeah.
I can confirm that much.
Fair.
Silicon. I should have named one of my kids Draco. In hindsight,
That is
mistakes
true.
were made.
Yeah.
But anyways, when Antares Draco kills Emperor Ronfell, very much strong influences, or I guess vibes, for lack of a better word, from Game of Thrones. The character of Jaime Lannister, one of the Kingsguard, killing the Mad King, who is going through an episode where he's about to torch the entire city with fire. The Mad King, obviously implied in the name that he's mad. So Jaime kills his king, even though he's his sworn guardian. Now, in Legacy, in the Imperial Knights, this is a justified thing. Like, knights are allowed to kill their emperor if the emperor goes off the rails.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Jaime Lannister has to live with, even though he's a hero in the sense that he saved all those innocents' lives, he has to live with like having broken his oath, and is always going in a very honor-based culture is going to have to live with that, and being known as like the Kingslayer, and just the, you know, derogatory treatment that he'll receive from society as a whole because of what he did, even though it was in essence a noble act, even if it's a betrayal of his oaths. I had very strong Game of Thrones vibes, so I just wanted to bring that up. The Imperial Knights were created by John Ostrander, who his name has come up quite a bit within the Star Wars universe. So
he's a common, and Jan Duursema, I think, has done a few as well.
Yeah. So they're both not new to Star Wars, not new to introducing cool concepts and ideas. And really, the whole thing with Imperial Knights isn't even all theirs. In the original drafts of Star Wars, the Jedi were always meant to be like personal bodyguards of the Emperor, and it was supposed to be this whole betrayal of the Sith were like a split off faction within them, and that the Jedi was like a Jedi revolution, and back then, like, the Empire was not inherently evil, but this new evil empire takes over.
Sure.
And then these like Black Knights of the Sith hunt down all the Jedi and supplant them.
Okay. Yeah.
Very similar also to like the story of the Three Musketeers, if anyone's familiar with that classic tale by Alexandre Dumas, where, you know, you have the King's Guard, the Musketeers, getting supplanted by the Cardinal's Guards, and that whole thing. Conceptually, it's very cool. I love that story and that idea, and Ostrander and Duursema kind of resurrect that concept in a new way with Legacy. You know, the Sith are working alongside the Fel Empire, but they're distinct factions, and then the Sith kind of usurp the Fel Empire and take over, and then drive the Imperial Knights into exile with their Emperor. So, very cool all around. I like that it is birthed in like the deepest lore of Star Wars, in the sense of like it didn't even get used. Like, it was like first drafts type stuff.
Yeah.
Like we said, they were obviously introduced with the Legacy comics, and they never really specified how many knights there were. They kind of stated that it was originally decided there would only be like a dozen of them, but through the stories and stuff, as it kind of like evolved, they kind of settled on somewhere between 12 and 60. So there's no real like set amount of them. They just wanted it to be a small elite faction.
Yeah.
But how many that is, I think for storytelling purposes, it gets hard if you kill off a couple here and there. You're like, well, we need more if there's only 12.
Right.
So just for utility of the storytelling, they kind of didn't put themselves in a box with a hard number. The in-universe origins of the Knights we kind of touched on. It's hinted at through, obviously, with Jaina Solo marrying Jagged Fell. This is another interesting concept we've talked about before, about the genetics of the Force and whether or not family bloodlines or species bloodlines, like if the Force can be transferred biologically like that.
Yeah. Well, it can in midichlorians.
Right.
Yeah. Hypothetically. I mean,
that's the thing where sometimes they say yes and sometimes they say no.
Yeah.
And this is one of those cases where it appears that that's the case. Now, I say appears because it may not very well be the case, but like the Fells, even if you go back as far as Baron Fell, he's a very good Imperial pilot, not Force sensitive.
Yeah.
There's Jagged Fell.
Yeah.
But they marry into the Skywalker family line through Jaina Solo. Obviously, she brings the Force sensitivity of the Skywalker heritage. Again, I'm not saying that the Force does follow in family legacy, but it is heavily implied in this case that is where that enters the Fell bloodline.
Yeah.
And then since then, the Fells happen to be Force sensitive.
Right. Yeah. Was it there? Man, this is escaping me, but I thought there was maybe a child or grandchild of either the Solos or the Skywalkers who like was completely couldn't use the Force at all.
That sounds vaguely familiar to you.
Yeah, someone will have to remind me of, but I swear there was one who was sort of an anomaly where like they couldn't use the Force.
Yeah, and I believe it's Anya Solo.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
the great granddaughter. So that's the part of Legacy Part 2.
Okay.
Which I actually haven't read yet.
Yeah.
So that's on my docket. So I'm not totally familiar with her story yet.
Yeah.
So I'm hesitant to say anything concretely, but that's the vague memory I have, is that she's not Force sensitive and is more takes after her Solo heritage, being more of like a roguish figure, non-Force sensitive roguish figure. But yeah, and again, like this is one of those contradictions in Star Wars where you have entire species that are Force sensitive in the same way, so it's very clearly genetically linked in that sense.
Yeah.
But then they outright say like, no, it has nothing to do with genetics, and you could have like some random hyper Force sensitive just pop up in a line of non-Force sensitives, or people who have delayed Force abilities.
Right.
Manifest, though it's implied in those cases that they were always Force sensitive, it just hadn't fully manifested yet.
Mm-hmm.
But that is also a big, kind of like the Great Jedi, this big back and forth, and technically on paper I believe it is not genetically linked, even though time and again the opposite seems to be proven as the case. In any regard, that is how the Fell bloodline ends up becoming Force sensitive, and then it's cool that the Fell Emperors also are Imperial Knights. They are trained in the Order, so in theory take on kind of the same philosophy as the Order. So Roan Fell and his daughter Maracia Fell are both former Imperial Knights, as well as being the Emperor and later Empress. But they have all the same training as the Imperial Knights. They are just elevated from within their ranks, which I always thought was kind of a cool feature.
Yeah, for sure.
Overall, the Imperial Knights seem to be very well liked. I'm a big fan of them. I know Jordan is too. The fan community seems to be quite, even just on cool factor, like they're cool. They lean more heavily into the warrior aspect of the warrior monk of the Jedi. The Jedi have all this like religious baggage that kind of comes with them philosophically. But these guys are like, no, we're warriors. That is our primary purpose. We get to wear cool armor. We get to use our weapons. Like, we'll draw our weapons in a heartbeat without a second thought, which is always very cool. But
yeah, I like their like this, not paternal order, but an order.
They're more like the knights of history.
Like they have like a martial tradition and stuff like that, which is cool. They're not just sort of unbound dark side users or something to that effect,
Yeah. Just be careful when Googling Imperial Knights. Google tends to favor the Warhammer 40k version of Imperial Knights, which are giant mech suits, which are cool in their own right, but absolutely not what we're talking about in this episode. But yeah, like definitely encourage people to go Google Google image search them. Their armor is very cool. The crimson and black, can't go wrong with that. Like I said, very influenced by Darth Vader and the Royal Guards. One thing I wish they had was a helmet, like a cool, unique helmet design that's more their own that they could claim.
Yeah.
But very cool nonetheless.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Anything else on the Imperial Knights we should?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, let's quickly, we'll dive into the mailbag here. Got an email and a few comments I wanted to address. First, this one's from Caden. He says, "Hey, I'm a big fan of Star Wars. Can you do an episode about the Sith Lord, specifically in the time after Darth Bane and before Darth Sidious?" He says, "I love the Sith Lords in the High Republic era, like Tenebris, Xana, and Bane." I think he maybe means just the Old Republic era.
Yeah, like the newer half of the Old Republic.
Yeah. Like the Bane era. Like, what is that, 1,000 years before?
Before episode 1.
Yeah. High Republic is Disney. just FYI. But yeah, probably if you're new to it, you might get those mixed up. You might think they're the same, but that's a different timeline entirely.
Yeah, universe, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. And we haven't really covered the High Republic other than a few passing mentions. But I know very little about the High Republic era. I don't know if you know anything about it.
I do know bits and pieces, and there are some gems in the rough, I'll say. There's some cool ideas, but it suffers from all the typical Disney execution problems.
In regards to the question, we'll definitely be doing a Darth Bane eventually here.
So kind of to give listeners a roadmap, I guess, we kind of like to space our eras that we cover out because it would take years for us to just go from one beginning point of the galaxy all the way to the other end.
Yeah.
So kind of we jump ahead, we'll do a section maybe in the Old Republic, we'll jump ahead and do kind of like the Republic era, and then we'll do like maybe a New Hope kind of era, and then like post New Hope kind of era. So if you kind of recognize in the patterns of our episodes, it's kind of in that vein.
Yeah,
so
we'll release like a bunch, like 3 or 4 or 5.
Yeah, in little clusters.
And then that covers a certain era.
Yeah, really. Exactly. Yeah. So certainly we will be touching, those are obviously massive players, especially Darth Bane.
Yeah.
But even touching on that whole era of the old, I think they're the old Sith Wars is what they're called. We will be covering all that. I know we haven't touched it yet, but we are getting there. We're building steam towards getting there. So
absolutely,
stay tuned for that.
Absolutely. And now the next sort of in the mailbag that we have here is the debate over the pronouncement of Twi'lek or Twi'lek.
Oh no.
So it seems I got a lot of comments and responses about the Twi'lek episode. I still don't know if I call it Twi'lek or Twi'lek. I think I called it Twi'lek in that episode, but
I probably 100% bounce between the two.
Yeah. It seems from all the comments that I've gotten and some messages, it seems to err on the side of Twi'lek, but I would say it's more like 60-40. It's not unanimous. Like there have been some people who said no, it's Twi'lek, and other people who say it's Twi'lek.
Well, it comes from twin leku.
Yeah.
So Twi'lek. Twin lek.
Yeah, I guess.
Twi'lek.
That would be more like Twi'lek.
Twi'lek, yeah.
Which is not either of those pronunciations. But
so everyone's wrong, is what you're saying.
So just wanted to address that because we were getting obviously lots of response. That's a hot topic in the Star Wars universe.
One of our highest listened to episode is about Twi'leks.
Yeah.
Talk about everything in the Star Wars galaxy, and everyone's listening to the Twi'lek episode.
Yeah.
There's no visuals in that episode, guys. Come on.
Yeah, for sure. We got like another comment. They were asking if we'd ever. I know we were just addressing this future episodes. Would we ever do a Star Killer episode? Now, I'm not sure. Did we do a Star Killer episode?
No. There's a lot of overlap in other.
Yeah, I feel like we've mentioned him.
Yeah,
in the past.
we absolutely have mentioned him a number of times across other episodes. Just because his storyline crosses over into other characters and events. We will obviously be doing a dedicated episode at some point. I've always been somewhat critical of the whole Force Unleashed era stuff. I very much enjoy it. I liked it. I love the games.
Yeah.
However, there are some issues, let's say, that I am looking forward to discussing in a dedicated episode. So, yeah, if there is a Star Wars concept or character, especially a big one, that you haven't heard about yet, there are a lot of characters in Star Wars to get through. It is the hope that we will get to them eventually, sooner or later. But it's just gotta wait in the to do pile.
Happens when it happens.
Yeah. Everyone has their favorite character, and we gotta get to them eventually.
If you send the Star Wars podcast like a huge donation and just say,
you can bribe your way up.
yeah,
for
just
sure.
say like, this is the episode I want you to do. All right, we'll do that episode.
Yeah,
Sponsored
we can
by,
be bought.
Yeah, sponsored by you, the
listeners, the patrons,
the donator. So, anyways, one more. I'll go through one more. I had a few here. This is a question from Gavin. And he asked, what would you recommend for Star Wars video games other than Battlefront and Lego Skywalker Saga? Because I have them. And what's your favorite? I mean, I've always been into the older games. It's hard for me to recommend anything. I haven't tried like the new MMO.
The Old Republic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, not the Old Republic. Outlander or something.
Oh, yeah. I've heard that was trash.
Yeah, I heard mixed reviews about it too, but I don't know.
I haven't played it.
Yeah, I haven't played it.
All cards on the table. I haven't played it. I'm just going off of what other people have said.
Yeah, I mean, I love the classics. I love Knights of the Old Republic. I love Episode 1 Racer. I love Shadows of the Empire.
Pod Racer has a surprising staying power.
Oh, yeah.
Being an N64 game.
And they keep remaking it too.
Yeah.
So it's obviously
Still
there's
a hit.
demand there.
Yeah, all the classics, Rogue Squadron, Shadows of the Empire.
Oh, yeah, so good.
I would say certainly if you haven't tried Republic Commando, it's a darker take on Star Wars. It would make you love Clone Troopers. I absolutely love that game. I think there's a lot that modern shooters could even still learn from. Republic Commando came out, I think, in somewhere in the mid 2000s.
Oh, it was an Xbox game, right?
Yeah.
Original Xbox, yeah.
believe
Probably
so.
like 04 or something.
Yeah, I'm
maybe
thinking
it came.
between 04 and 06.
Yeah.
But it hasn't aged poorly in the sense of like graphics can always be updated, but it's tolerable, right? It's not like playing a N64 or like a Super NES game, well, pixels and stuff. So definitely that. I guess it depends too on what kind of games you like. I mean, there's strategy games. I always loved Galactic Battlegrounds and
So good.
Oh man, I can't even remember now. There's a newer one, War, which is another RTS for Star Wars. So if you're into RTS games, love both of those. Like first person shooters.
I actually never played any of the Lego Star Wars games.
I haven't, but I heard they're very good.
I've also heard good things about them. Yeah. So I might have to pick
Maybe
one
you just
along.
recommended one to us.
Yeah,
This
exactly.
turned into a reversal.
Yeah.
If you like lightsaber combat, can't go wrong with Jedi Academy games.
Oh yeah.
They're usually pretty fun. And there's quite a few of those to pick from.
Yeah.
There's a lot. It really depends on what you like to play. And even most recently, again, like as much as we like to, rag on Disney, the Cal Kestis games, the name's escaping me right now.
Is it the like fighter pilot one?
No, it's the Jedi Fallen Order.
Oh yeah,
Fallen Order and the other one, one is the sequel. Those are pretty fun as well.
Fallen Order
as
is pretty good. Yeah,
I was just criticizing it. Force Unleashed is a fun game to play, absolutely. Yeah. So, if you like lightsaber and force powers, those are the games to play. So,
Absolutely.
Also, surprisingly, Jango Fett, the video game, has gotten an update too.
Really?
Yeah. If you go Steam, so I bought that. Anytime there's a Star Wars sale, I always buy it. So I literally have owned almost every Star Wars game at some point in my life. If you haven't played Knights of the Old Republic, definitely play those as RPGs.
Yeah.
Won't spoil the story for you, but the story alone is worth it. But the gameplay is fun too. Absolutely. Yeah, we could talk endlessly. Should almost like we should have like a Twitch channel or something where we just play Star Wars games.
Yeah, true.
If you guys want to see it, help support the show to justify to our families as to why we're playing video games.
Yeah, pay us to play video games.
I would honestly love that. But yeah,
cool.
Hopefully that answers your question.
Hopefully, yeah. Anyways, thanks for listening. Don't forget to reach out to us on social media, x.com, Facebook, Instagram, Discord. All the links are in the description of this show. Go to our link channel there, or sort of our link tree there, and you'll find everything you need. All right, peace.